Coming up on our second hour of America Talks Live, we're just 5 days from the midterm elections. Are the Democrats going to take the House as most polls suggest? Or are they making similar mistakes to 2016? Also, did you know today is open enrollment day on the Obamacare exchanges, as President Trump is quietly working to dismantle parts of that program? We'll tell you what you need to know. And President Trump says now up to 15,000 troops will be deployed to protect our southern border. President Obama says opposition to the migrant caravan, though, is a, quote, scare tactic. How will that all play out on midterm election day? We'll tell you. All that and more coming up during this hour of America Talks Live. Great to see you back here in this second hour of America Talks Live. If you're just joining us, welcome aboard. Dick Farrell sitting with me today in for Dr. Gina, who is traveling with the president. Pretty cool, right? She was with him last night in Fort Myers, Florida, and will be with him at his rally in Missouri this evening. And we'll be hearing from Gina a little bit later in the show, around 2:45 p.m. She's going to give us a behind-the-scenes sneak peek at what went on during last night's Fort Myers, Florida rally. So you're going to be sure to, you actually want to be sure to stick around and hear that. Okay, big question about Robert Mueller's special counsel investigation, something we haven't been talking much about lately. The question is, did he or didn't he? And what I'm talking about is, did Robert Mueller or didn't he already issue a subpoena to President Donald Trump? Now, hours after Politico published an op-ed claiming that Mueller subpoenaed President Trump, the president fired back saying the story was false. The White House is also pushing back on the Politico story, as are President Trump's private lawyers, Jay Sekulow, and former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. And that's where I want to welcome in our first guest, former federal prosecutor, Larry Klayman. Larry, it's always great to see you.
The same, John. How are you doing?
The big question, Larry, what do you think? You were a federal prosecutor. You were on the other side of these subpoenas during your time at DOJ. Do you think Mueller subpoenaed Trump or didn't he?
First of all, you got to remember Politico is left of center. Okay, they do not like Trump. Although they try to look neutral, they're not. So you got to take it with a grain of salt. But what may have happened here, and they both may be telling the truth, both Politico and President Trump, it's possible that Mueller went to the court with a request for a declaratory judgment as to whether he can subpoena the president. That may be actually the way to split this in two in terms of analysis. But we know that Mueller is out to get President Trump. There's no question about it. And what's really disturbed me...
Larry, one sec. Just explain that for the viewers, what a declaratory judgment is, very simply. Essentially, Mueller's going to the court and asking the judge for an opinion, a yay or nay, on whether or not he could subpoena the president, correct?
Right. I mean, there is a case or controversy here. The president is under investigation. There's no question that he's under investigation. So you can go to the court and, in fact, ask them for what is like an advisory opinion. Can I subpoena the president or not? Unusual circumstances. I don't want to do it for political reasons right now, but I want your blessing and your rubber stamp to do it. And when you're talking about the District of Columbia and the District of Columbia Circuit, the appellate court, they're like a rubber stamp. They're still highly leftist. They're very partisan. I don't know of many judges, even at the lower court, that like the judges on the D.C. Circuit. It's one of the worst circuits in the United States, only second to the Ninth Circuit when it comes to political partisanship. So it's possible that Mueller is doing that. And in fact, I think it's probably likely.
All right. Now, Larry, there's somebody that you and I have both been critical of when it came to the Mueller investigation who's being spoken about, and that's former White House counsel Don McGahn. Now, CNN is reporting that Trump is now blaming McGahn for Robert Mueller's Russia probe, for it spiraling out of control, as many feel, you being one, me being another. CNN reports that Trump complained to McGahn in a meeting last month that the investigation is, quote, casting a cloud over his presidency. The former White House counsel, as we spoke about here, reportedly sat down with Mueller and his team for more than 30 hours. McGahn departed his job at the White House last month. You've been critical of McGahn. I've often agreed with you. I've been critical of McGahn. But can this all be blamed on Don McGahn, or were there some other people in the White House enabling Mueller as well, people like Rod Rosenstein and his allies in the West Wing?
That remains to be seen, but it's likely that he can be blamed. In fact, he's establishment Republican, pure establishment Republican. The fact that he's even in that job, the president made a mistake. He also gave, as you said, John, 30 hours of interviews to Robert Mueller. I don't know how you can do that and not violate executive privilege. So did he do it behind the president's back? We don't know that yet. Now, the president's been reticent to fire anybody because he's worried about the blowback. He wants to kind of own them in a way. This is why you still have Rod Rosenstein there, who shouldn't be there at all. I mean, the guy should be fired for 100 different reasons. So he's being Machiavellian, the president. I think he's making a mistake in terms of what he's doing. And he's taking the bad advice of his lawyers, who are establishment Republicans, too.
Mr. Klayman, we're concerned a little bit about the Mueller investigation now turning to a fellow named Jerome Corsi. Do you know anything about that?
Well, I don't know anything about anything that Jerome Corsi did. I know that Jerome Corsi is a conservative journalist. He's written some good things that have been out there. He's the one basically that took down John Kerry during the election with regard to his traitorous actions in Vietnam. But I know nothing about this, but it tells you something where Mueller is going right now. He is focused on Roger Stone. It is most likely, and Roger has said this, that he's going to be indicted. He's then going to try to squeeze Stone into saying against the president, Robert Mueller is out to get the president. And the president thinks it's going away because there hasn't been much talk in the last few days, but there may be. In fact, I'm getting documents tomorrow from Robert Mueller as to whether he's leaked grand jury information. Court has ordered that, and that would be a crime if, in fact, that happened.
Larry,
so
with the midterms, with the midterms just 5 days away, how much do you think this investigation, Russia, at all for that matter, might be on the voters' minds and taking it with them into the voting booth on Tuesday?
It's already on the voters' minds, but in terms of the Republicans are seeing an upswing in voting right now. And I think they realize that in conjunction with what happened with Justice Kavanaugh, with this witch hunt of Robert Mueller's investigation, calling the president anti-Semite, he's the most pro-Jewish Israel president in modern history, they're fed up and they're going to go to the polls. Whether that's enough to keep the witch out of Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, remains to be seen. But I don't understand why the Republicans aren't running commercials just with pictures of Pelosi right now, because the thought of her as House Speaker is enough to frighten anyone. It would even frighten Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz.
Hey, Larry, I'm seeing that Maxine Waters might now be in contention for Speaker. But let's talk about this concept of a blue wave, because I saw an interesting theory pop up over the last couple of days. So hypothetically speaking, I don't think there's going to be. I could be wrong, but I don't think there's going to be this massive blue wave. But if there is, and Democrats take over the House and or the Senate, which I think is highly unlikely, especially on the Senate side, it impacts the Russia investigation. But will it be a positive or a negative for Mueller? Because we know that a Chairman Adam Schiff is going to be tripping over himself to subpoena, to open up multiple investigations, many, many prongs, many tentacles. But would that wind up stepping on Mueller? Would that wind up botching Mueller's case? Because Congress will be subpoenaing some of the same people Mueller wants to speak to, potentially offering them immunity and, in effect, nullifying Mueller's investigation so they can grandstand. What do you think?
And here's the way it's going to work. They're going to work Tweedledee Tweedledum. Mueller's going to tee it up for Schiff. He's going to tee it up for the House Democrats if they take control of the House. And that's going to be the trigger point, not just to more investigations, but an impeachment proceeding. And in the context of an impeachment proceeding, an investigation will be underway. That's what happened with Bill Clinton. The House manager, Dave Schippers, who I worked with, Bob Barr, who filed those articles of impeachment. We helped him do that. These people all worked together. So Mueller's going to give them the springboard to not just start impeachment proceedings, but to do investigations within that context, as well as independent investigations by a variety of committees in the House. And it's not just going to be with regard to the president. Larry, Hell's going to break with regard to conservatives generally in terms of their being persecuted by Nancy Pelosi and company.
Larry, it seems like everything the Democrats do blows up in their face ultimately, and you ran through a litany of those. And this October, we saw no October surprise. Do you see anything scandalous coming out between now and next Tuesday?
It could happen. You just really can't predict at this point. But, hey, the Democrats have, quote, good fortune. I do believe that this guy who sent the so-called pipe bombs. I think he was probably paid off by somebody to do it. I mean, the guy's not exactly a rocket scientist. It worked in the Democrats' favor. I don't know whether they were for real or not. We talked about that on a prior show. And the FBI needs to come clean on what actually happened. And then, of course, the synagogue bombing where they accused the president of being an anti-Semite. He's the last one who's an anti-Semite. Barack Obama was an anti-Semite. I'll tell you, he hated Israel. He hated Netanyahu. And he did everything he could to harm Jewish interests in this country. So, they are rolling on a wave right now in terms of bad publicity for the president. It's affected his ratings. It's affected the ratings of the Republicans generally. And I don't know what's going to happen in the next few days, but anything could happen.
No, Larry, we have about a minute left. So we know that this guy Bauer is the synagogue killer. He's facing 44 counts. I believe 23 of those are death penalty offenses. They include hate crimes, a litany of other charges. He's also going to face state charges. We're hearing quite a bit about him, but you mentioned Cesar Sayoc Jr., the guy who sent the suspicious packages. We don't even know if they were real explosives. After only about 2-3 days, this guy essentially disappeared. It's like he's in witness protection. Why do you think no one seems to care about Cesar Sayoc Jr. and these packages anymore, Larry? Last 30 seconds to you.
Well, because the left, I think, sees that he is a patsy, okay? He was obviously put up to this. Like I said, he's not the sharpest knife in the drawer. And I think, this is my guess, that he was paid off to do this for the Democrats. I do believe that. And, of course, that they don't want that coming out, so they're not talking about it as much anymore. But they've got something else to go on. The president is an anti-Semite, and that's so ridiculous. I've started a group called the Coalition of the Jewish Right. I'm a Jewish Christian. But as a Jew, I am totally embarrassed and disgusted by the Jewish left in this country, some of them, not all of them, who, in fact, are working against Jewish people and working against the state of Israel. And that's not anti-Semitic. As a Jew, I can say that.
Thank you, Mr. Klayman. We're just about out of time. We appreciate your help. Is the blue wave dead? President Trump thinks so. More on America Talks Live when we return after a short break.